Hello and welcome to this special edition of Newsline. Critics dismissed them as cranks or nutters, but now thousands of people around the world claim to have seen some kind of unidentified flying object. Could they be visits to Earth by life forces from other planets or just tricks of the light? Why are so many eminent scientists prepared to say that they think there's something in it? The case for UFOs was bolstered this week when the Civil Aviation Authority reported that a Boeing 737 came within 100 yards of an object in the sky. Not only did the pilots see the object, but it was spotted on a radar. Well, in America, UFO spotters gather in one particular town in Florida to stare into the sky. Robin Dorian reports.
Gulf Breeze, Florida, just 2 miles long and half a mile wide. A tiny coastal town situated on the shores of Florida's Panhandle, a town that seems to have been selected by visitors, but not just any tourists.
It is an intense area for UFO activity. There's no doubt about that.
They are interested in us helping the world become aware.
The matter was going down, or the craft was going straight up.
Gulf Breeze has become a center for UFO activity. Residents are determined to find out why. In the last 12 months, they've documented 122 unexplained sightings, an average of 1 every 3 days. Last week, we sent our producer, Lila McMurray, and a crew to investigate the UFO phenomenon in Gulf Breeze, Florida. And in the evening on 2 consecutive days, they saw what can legitimately be described as unidentified flying objects. On the sands overlooking the Gulf of Mexico, our crew videotaped these incredible pictures.
White, look, there goes! White! I'm talking to it. Okay, then who's got a light?
We were looking over the water up in the sky, and all of a sudden, out of nowhere, this red light appeared. I was kind of shocked by it because I didn't see it coming from the ground, or I didn't see it coming up, down, anywhere. It just appeared. And someone handed me binoculars, and when I looked through the binoculars, I could see a ring of 6 red lights.
Our crew is not the only objective observer tantalized by UFOs at Gulf Breeze. Art Hufford is a chemical engineer, a scientist with a professional bias towards hard facts. His sighting led him to join and later become president of the Pensacola Mutual UFO Network. Called MUFON, it is a non-profit organization dedicated to scientific research of UFOs.
Look! My interest in UFOs began in November of 1987 as a result of my wife and I having a sighting late one afternoon. We were driving on the way home, and suddenly above treetops ahead of us we saw this object craft. I think in this area the total number of witnesses at one time was up to about 500.
We weren't ready to say automatically that this was something that was from outer space or from another planet.
Patty Weatherford is an auditor for the state of Florida. She became interested in UFOs after what she claims was a bizarre experience.
I remembered waking up, or semi-waking up, and the room, my bedroom, was just filled with light, just brilliant white light. People need to just start opening their minds a little bit.
Those who have opened their minds to the subject of UFOs include Richard Nixon, Jimmy Carter, former astronaut Gordon Cooper, and any number of aviators and scientists, credible people seeking documented answers, just as in Gulf Breeze.
I've had enough sightings now that have indicated to me there is definitely an object there. We're not just seeing a light fly in the sky.
Most Gulf Breeze sightings occur at night, and many locals spend their evenings searching the night sky for evidence of UFOs. And the evidence they have found is mounting. These home videos record 6 separate UFO sightings. Watching them would give even the firmest skeptic time to pause.
Oh, look, it's brighter.
The one on the right is going down a little bit, and the one on the left's coming up.
Oh!
Whoa, whoa, whoa.
Oh, it's kind of green. It's got a green halo around it, doesn't it?
Oh, boy, that is close tonight.
Dr. Bruce Maccabee has a Ph.D. in optical physics. He works for the military and has studied the Gulf Breeze phenomenon.
In September, I decided to go down and go to Gulf Breeze and see for myself what was going on. I looked up, and sure enough, here was a whitish light up there, and I put the binoculars up, and I could see an elliptical ring of 8 points of light. It lasted for about 70 seconds and then just faded out.
While we were in Gulf Breeze, we went to the beach after sundown to inspect the skies. And when we captured these unexplained lights on videotape, there were other witnesses as well.
We saw the red light appear, and I could see 2 lights to begin with. It stayed for about 2.5 minutes, and all of a sudden turned a brilliant white. And when it did that, it lit up, and I could see craft above it. It was kind of an oval shape. It was beautiful to me. It's the first time I've seen it.
We was over there just, fishing, and we saw what everybody else saw, like a red star is what it kind of looked like as far off in the distance as it was, but
it's like it kind of got bright and then
bright and dim,
and then went away and came back.
Then when it did that, I don't know, it got real bright, like a greenish white type light, and burned out, and then it came back a few minutes later, and I don't no idea what it was.
Skeptics attribute the lights in the sky to the military. Eglin Air Force Base is located just east of Gulf Breeze. But if the military is involved in any covert operations, we will probably be the last to know. The Air Force refused to speak with us or even offer any explanations.
If it is a military test in Gulf Breeze, it seems awfully strange to me that the military would be testing their objects or their prototypes in people's backyards.
For now, the origins of these lights are left an unexplained mystery, leaving skeptics to question and believers to prove.
That's where we'll take a break. In part 2, the aliens who people claim took them off into outer space.
We have been invaded. I was abducted by a UFO.
I believe they need something from us, and they're going to get it.
Alien abductions and space creatures have long been fodder for sci-fi films, and sometimes they seem as suspect as these Hollywood special effects. But recent university research reveals that these close encounters may be more firmly grounded in fact than in fiction.
We do know that people appear to be being abducted. If these beings simply stop whatever they're doing and go away, that would be the best of all possible scenarios.
Dr. David Jacobs is a professor of history at Temple University in Philadelphia. He has been involved in the study of UFOs for more than 20 years. And in his book, Secret Life, he explores the accounts of 60 people's claims of 300 alien abduction experiences.
We find it to be very unsettling and very disturbing, and quite frankly, I wish that we weren't finding what we find.
What Dr. Jacobs found were bizarre accounts from doctors, lawyers, and business people, all claiming to have been taken aboard a spacecraft by small alien creatures. Jacobs is certain hundreds of thousands of people have been secretly abducted over and over again for purposes beyond human comprehension.
Most people will describe that they will be floated directly through a closed window. Now, I know this sounds ridiculous, and physically, of course, it can't be done, but they all say this.
Dr. Jacobs put us in touch with people who claim they have had abduction experiences. They are reluctant to speak, having been ridiculed for their stories before. Still, they feel compelled to tell of their experiences.
An abduction that stands out in my memory was when I was between 5 and 6 years old. I was swinging, and as I was swinging up and back and then up, I was taken up onto a spaceship where I was met at the door by an alien being. Walked down a hallway into a room where a physical examination was performed on me.
The most vivid account I have of an abduction was when I was about 8 years old. I was walking toward the house one afternoon after playing out back, and I looked up and saw a craft, your typical silver disc UFO. The next thing I knew, it seemed like a split second later, I was on the craft lying down on a table.
I remember very vividly being in my crib. A very bright bluish-white light comes through the window. Then I hear a voice telling me that everything's going to be okay and I shouldn't be afraid and I shouldn't be scared and I should continue to look at the light.
Dr. David Jacobs claims that abductions occur in many cases while people are driving. They suddenly feel an overwhelming urge to go to a secluded area.
You look out the door and there is an object off the side of the road. Get out of the car, walk towards the object, and already the event has started. You're in their control.
2 years ago, I was driving home. I took a shortcut down a deserted road. At one point, these headlights came up at me and literally forced me off the road. The next thing I remember, I got in the house and I called a friend of mine just because I guess I needed a reality check. I couldn't figure out what was going on. And he asked, when did this all happen? And I said, about 15 minutes ago. And when I told him what time I thought it was, he informed me that it was over 2 hours later.
Aaron and other abductees have illustrated their experiences with drawings, and their descriptions are astonishingly similar.
The alien was probably a little taller than I was at the time, maybe 4.5 feet. No hair, very large head, very dark eyes, black, large eyes. A little slit for a mouth, very thin, sort of grayish.
They were large-headed, large black eyes, no or very small noses and mouth.
There's not any single case that did it. What it is a slow accumulation of case after case after case, where people from around the country say basically the same exact thing.
Skeptics claim these tales are spun by psychologically unsound people who either want attention or somehow want to profit from their stories. Dr. Jacobs and the abductees insist that is not the case.
There has been psychological testing of a number of subjects. In each case, they have come out being as normal and normal people in every way with no signs of pathology.
There's nothing that I've gained. No. There's just no point in coming clean with something like this unless I feel it to be the absolute truth.
We have to begin to deal with this. We can't just play ostrich anymore. You just can't bury your head in the sand and saying it's too crazy, therefore it's not happening.
There are guardian angels or guardian extraterrestrials or whatever you want to call them who are looking over each and every one of us.
Meet Scott Corder, a physician who believes that he was contacted by aliens. In his opinion, it cost him dearly. 3 years ago, the Kansas Board of Healing Arts suspended his license to practice medicine.
I knew that I'm never crazy. These are just some of my beliefs.
Dr. Corder remembers a dream he had, which he later felt was real.
Extraterrestrials or angels requested of me, we want you to remember your contacts with us, because a lot of people blank it out.
This past week, Dr. Corder got his license back, but his case illustrates how most of the scientific community react to UFOs and extraterrestrials. They want concrete evidence, and until someone can come forward with indisputable proof of alien visitations, it is almost impossible for people to believe their stories as true.
The question is, should we accept these reports as true independently? And if we were to do so, as scientists, we would say, what is the evidence? And when you look for cooperation, it's very difficult to find that.
Paul Kurtz is a fellow of the American Association for the Advancement of Science. He is also chairman of the Committee for the Scientific Investigation of the Claims of the Paranormal. According to Kurtz's studies, 90 to 95% of UFOs can be explained as planets, meteor showers, or flares, identified flying objects. 5 to 10% of the reports are unexplained.
Is it extraterrestrial? I don't think we have enough evidence to say it is.
Even NASA is backing the search for the unknown, financing $100 million for a program called SETI, the search for extraterrestrial intelligence. Still, cynics refuse to believe.
Not one of them, not one of these people has come back with any new, novel, significant scientific information.
Phil Klass is a renowned UFO skeptic and believes it's not UFOs to fear.
The harm is not that people believe in UFOs, but rather if people join up with some of these UFO abduction cult groups, that is where the danger comes.
Robin Dorian of Current Affair Reporting. Well, that's where we'll take another break. In a moment, the British aeronautical engineer who now researches UFOs. Back to this Newsline special about UFOs. At the end of the last part, we heard an American scientist express skepticism about alien craft, but some other scientists insist there is proof of visitors from other planets. Among them is Roy Dutton, an aeronautical engineer who worked for British Aerospace for 37 years. Now he investigates sightings of UFOs. Good evening, Mr. Dutton.
Good evening.
We've seen the film there that there are all sorts of reports of unidentified flying objects, but where's the hard evidence that they exist?
Well, the hard evidence exists for those who look for it, as I did. 25 years ago, I began looking at the sightings in my own area.
Now, you've been spending more than 20 years investigating this evidence. What kind of evidence have you got?
Virtually every kind of evidence, except a piece of one of the vehicles. I have looked into the descriptions that people have given me, that I've obtained from the reports, and I have looked at the patterns of behavior, and I've looked, finally, at the global patterns, which indicate to me that we are dealing with an astronautical activity, which is not of this Earth.
So exactly what kind of evidence are you talking about?
The evidence, in the first place, is the behavior of the vehicles that people describe, and the kind of places which are visited.
Mm.
And they do seem to fit a very interesting pattern, which is not unreasonable, in that they are interesting places for someone keeping an eye on human activity.
Well, if we start from the very beginning, what presumably you start with is a reported sighting.
Yes.
And you work from there. Now, you've brought along this globe, which you use to actually trace the patterns of, well, future landings, is what you're talking about, or future sightings.
Yes, this globe is just a demonstration model, really, to show the sort of thing I discovered. I discovered that the locations on the Earth's surface could be, of the sightings, close encounter sightings, could be related to the stars in a meaningful way.
And I take it, if I can just show there, that these metal bars indicate the position of these space objects in the atmosphere.
Well, the point on the Earth's surface I showed could be linked by great circle arcs, this kind, great circle hoops, around the world, which are actually indicative of satellite operations.
And we can see there a slide of the Earth traces you're talking about.
No, those are typical traces, which I discovered, associated with these hoops against the star field. Those are the spiraling ground traces of some of these hoops. I discovered that there were that the whole thing was so structured that it was possible in the end to predict when something was likely to occur in any location as a result of the structured and pre-programmed type of activity that I discovered.
What you're saying is that all these sightings conform to a particular pattern. In fact, you're saying more than that. You're saying that all the sightings are linked, even loosely, one to another, aren't they?
Yes, by this structured astronautical strategy. So we have certain orientations relative to the stars, which are favoured, and which are used time and time again. And there are key points on the Earth's surface, which these things are key to.
You see, one of the things that people find it fairly easy to accept is the idea of a UFO. Most people don't dismiss the idea out of hand, but they would find that theory very hard to grasp, wouldn't they?
Yes, it's difficult to grasp without some background in astronomical principles and also astronautics. And I found great difficulty in getting scientists who can actually validate what I discovered.
Are you in fact telling me that you can predict where a sighting could be recorded next month, for example?
No, I wouldn't know which area is going to be targeted next. I could say that if some area, like Gulf Breeze, is being targeted time and time again, then I would be able to to predict what time of day or night we should go out looking for them.
And you're saying Gulf Breeze is the town in Florida we've just seen in that report.
Yeah.
You're saying that you would know roughly what day of the week, what time of day. It would all conform to a pattern, in other words.
Well, not which day of the week. It could be any day of the week. But on a particular day, we could go out and look in the likely places and at certain times, and those times would be very close to the actual time of appearance.
Are there some places that are more targeted, should I say, by possible alien spacecraft than others?
Yes, there are, and it does seem that this is linked to the strategy being used. It is also linked to human activity on the Earth's surface. So if we have a major development going on, a major new motorway system, or a new school, new industrial complex, and so on, a military base, then we can guarantee, I think, that a UFO sighting will occur, at least one, possibly several, in that area.
And one of your theories is that just the way we do exploratory missions to the moon, we send spacecraft up to Venus and Mars, that's what's happening to us. People are particularly interested in these sites because they're on investigative missions.
Yes. I believe we are under continuous scrutiny by an advanced species from somewhere out there in space. At least one species, there may be several.
What kind of species? That's also the other thing that people find it difficult to grasp. They can accept the idea of an object, but the idea of an alien nation is something that people do think is a complete fantasy.
Yes, it takes a lot of adjustment to one's thinking, but I think it's not unreasonable that there are such civilizations out there.
And very briefly, from all the reports I've seen, all the diagrams and the drawings and reported sightings, all these people look exactly the same. They all look like humans, which rather indicates that they are the product of some people's imaginations.
Yes, well, they could be in some cases, but there does seem to be so much commonality, really, between one report and another. It does seem to suggest that there are a number of different types being encountered. But a lot of this information does come from regression and hypnotic regression.
Okay, Roy Dutton, thank you very much for joining me.
Thank you.
That's all from Newsline for now. Please do join me for the next edition. But from me for now, it's goodbye. The news is next.